Don't start.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
भगवान की जय। खराब नहीं करूँगा मैं, मर जाता हूँ।
You did better karta than me. It really helped me. If I make a mistake. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
ओम ज्ञानतिमिरस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशकारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So today I'll discuss on the topic of there's a well-known verse in the Puranas. Atah Shri Krishna Madi na bhaved grahyam indriyai sevo mukhe jivhadau swayam eva spuratyadaha. So this is the theme speaking how Krishna is experienced and how Krishna can't be experienced. So, Ataha Shri Krishna Namadi, that the name and other paraphernalia of Krishna, na bhavet grahyam indriyai, by the gross senses, na bhavet, one cannot perceive. Sevon mukhe hi jivhadau, when we do service to Krishna, seva unmukha. Unmukha means our face turns towards him by service to him. Jivhadau, and such service begins with the tongue. And then by such service, which begins with the tongue, swayameva spuratyataha. Swayameva means by his own will. Spuratya. Spuratya means manifests. So Krishna manifests by his own will when we serve him. So, in many traditions, many religious traditions, there is the idea that God is unknown and God is unknowable. And that is because they say God is infinite, we are finite. So, when we look at the world around us, normally it's not that suddenly we start thinking about God. We look at the world and we observe, okay, there is this plants, there are these birds, there are these flowers, there are the stars, there is the sky. Now, these are the normal objects that we observe. And by this knowledge, by trying to know about these things, that's how we normally fulfill our curiosity. Srila Prabhupada explains that all knowledge comes from Krishna. But knowledge doesn't begin from Krishna. Knowledge comes from Krishna means it is Krishna who gives us understanding of things. He is present in our hearts and he gives us understanding. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smatir jnanam apohanam cha. It is who gives us, he gives us understanding. But, so all knowledge comes from Krishna, but all knowledge doesn't begin from Krishna. Our knowledge begins from the things around us in this world. So, broadly speaking, we could say that there are three ways in which the human consciousness can ascend towards God. We could call it the sociological, psychological, and cosmological. That means that if we consider we are situated in the world and we as souls are situated in a body-mind machine, then the body-mind machine is situated in society, and a society is situated in a universe, a cosmos. So these are the three coverings on the soul. And through any of these coverings, the soul may start inquiring. So we may look at the people around us, and sometimes people behave in strange ways. Sometimes people frustrate us. Sometimes people thrill us. There's a philosopher, existentialist philosopher, European. He was asked, Albert Camus. He was asked, do you believe in hell? He said, yes. Now, he was known to be an atheist. So people are surprised that he said he believed in hell. He said, what is your conception of hell? He said, hell means other people. So his idea was that anyway, it mixed with people. People lie, people cheat, people betray us. So hell means other people. So sometimes in our social circles, people may let us down so much, they may frustrate us so much, that makes us inquire, what is life all about? What is life meant for? I long for relationships. Why is it that relationships are frustrating me so much? And thus, we may inquire about something higher. So through the frustration relationships, we may inquire whether life has some higher dimension. Or it may be that we look at the world around, and if we look at night, the beautiful sky, so many stars, the starlit night looks so captivating. And we get the question, where did all this come from? And from that inquiry, we may rise towards some higher being. There must be some higher intelligence which has fashioned all this. So this could be another way in which our inquiry may point us towards God. Or thirdly, we might just look inwards. Say, I have thoughts and mind, I have consciousness. And where does this consciousness come from? So, generally we talk about the design argument for the existence of God. How things in this world are well designed, and therefore there must be a God. There is also another argument, it's called the argument from consciousness towards God. Argument from consciousness means that consciousness which all of us have, this is different from everything else that we see in the world. The whole world is filled with matter, but there is something within us that experiences matter. Hey, this is sweet, this is bitter, this is enjoyable, this is frustrating. So how does matter evolve to produce something that experiences matter? What is experience? How does experience of matter take place? So the more one studies this, the more one will understand that actually this capacity to experience matter and whatever it is that is experiencing matter, that is of an entirely different nature as compared to matter itself. And that consciousness is having some higher source. This consciousness is different from matter, and this consciousness must have a source in some supreme consciousness. It's an elaborate argument. I'm just giving a threadbare threadbare outline of the argument, that by seeing the qualitative difference between matter and consciousness, we understand that consciousness is a fundamental property of nature, and consciousness must come from some source, and therefore that source must be supremely conscious. It's like, say, we are in this house and suddenly we find a gold ring fallen on the ground. Now, if there's nothing else that is golden over here, and there's only one golden ring, where did this golden ring come from? There must be some gold ore somewhere from which this ring came. So I have not seen a golden ore or gold ore, but just by seeing the gold ring, I infer there must be some source for this. So similarly, by observing the presence of consciousness, we can infer the presence of supreme consciousness. Now, why I talk about these three broad approaches is that from our philosophy, the Atma is covered in three layers: the Adi Atmic, the Adi Bhautik, and the Adi Daivik. Yeah. So Adi Atmic refers to the body mind, Adi Bhautik refers to the society, and Adi Daivik refers to the nature. So the soul is encased in all these three coverings, and through these coverings, the soul experiences various things in this world. So, Karya Karana Kartrutve Hetu Prakritiruchyate Purushah Sukha Dukkhana Bhokrutve Heturuchyate. In 30.21 in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that cause and effect, these happen within the arena of material nature. Cause and effect. Now this leads to this, that leads to that. That has happened in the arena of material nature. But happiness and distress are experienced by consciousness, by the conscious being, because of the desire to enjoy. Karya Karana Kartrute Hetu Prakritiruchyate. Action, reaction, cause, effect, they happen in the material domain. But Purusha Sukha Dukkhana, experience happen in distress because Bhokrutve Heturuchyate. So it's a child is playing a video game, and there's a grand auto theft or whatever. The child is playing auto game, and this happens, that happens. Now, all that is happening in the video game is simply as per the way the video game has been programmed. You could say as per the laws of electronics, the laws of physics, everything that is happening in the video, this car moves this way, this thief escapes this way, this police car goes this way, this is shot down, this happens, that happens. All that happens is based on the laws of physics. But the player who is playing the game, the player experiences because of the desire to enjoy. Whatever they want to happen, it happens. Yeah, it's very good. So exactly the opposite happens. It's so frustrating. So now all those emotions, say a child is watching a movie, say a child is watching a horror movie, and the mother is watching the child. Now the child watching the horror movie may go through all sorts of horror. That child will be trembling, crying, horripilating. Now the mother is not experiencing any of the emotions, because the mother is not interested in horror movie. So whatever is happening on the screen is happening by its own, by the way the program has, by the movie has been programmed. It's all as per the laws of physics, you could say. Whatever shooting was done, and after that it was all shot, it was all stored in either a reel or a digital format, and then it is being played out. But what we are experiencing depends on the way our consciousness is invested. So presently our consciousness, which is in these three coverings, the psychophysical, the sociological, the cosmological, with these three coverings, the soul experiences various phenomena in relation to these. And normally our consciousness stays caught here. It doesn't go to anything higher. It is that even when people go to God, when people are at a religious or a pious level, not necessarily a spiritual level, even when they go to God, their purpose is to, if in these three layers something is going wrong, please set it right. So, maybe we have some relationship up and down and people are not behaving properly. Then we pray to God, please set this right. Or say our health is not good. Then we may pray that please set it right. Or say some earthquake occurs. That time start chanting Krishna's name intensely. Pray to Krishna, please let nothing go wrong. So when some disruptions happen in these three layers, that is the time when we go to God. At these times, we are not interested in God per se. We are interested in that things don't go wrong in these three layers where we are functioning. And as long as our consciousness is caught in these three layers, na bhavet grahyam indriyai. We cannot perceive Krishna directly. All that we can perceive is that there are changes happening in these three layers, and we don't want unfavorable changes to happen in that. And if there is some higher being, may he make things right over here. So there is most religions in this world, whether it be Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, they all operate at this level. This is the level of what is called as karma kand. Karma kand means you pray to God so that he keeps things all right in this world. Prabhupada would quote the famous Christian prayer, "O Father thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, give us our daily bread." And he would say this prayer is good, people are at least going to God. But he says this prayer reveals people's love for bread, not love for God. And he said that if people start getting bread by some other means, then there is no need for them to go to God. In more analytical terms, there is 4 Purusharthas. What are the 4 Purusharthas? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Now most people are not interested in Dharma for Dharma's sake. They are not interested in being virtuous for being religious for being religious. Most people practice Dharma so that they will get Artha and Kama. And if somehow they get Artha and Kama without Dharma, they feel there is no need for Dharma. In fact, there's some interesting studies, sociological studies, correlating religious faith and well-being of people. They found time and again that people who believe in God, and not just believe in an abstract sense, but they have some religious commitment. They go to a temple, they go to a church. Their religion is expressed through their actions. So they have overall better physical, mental and social health. That means even if they generally they don't fall prey to so much addictions, they are less prone to suicidal urges, less prone to depression. That's mental. Physical level also, if they get a heart attack, they get a stroke, they recover faster. On an average, they live between 7 to 11 years more than non-religious people. There's an Oxford Handbook of Religion and Health, which compiled 2,000 studies done correlating religious faith and health across the world, and they put it all together in a meta study. So this is findings over there. And similarly, they found that at a social level, if people are religious, then marriages are stabler, relationships are better taken care of, the parents take more care of children. So the generational and cross-generational ties are stronger. But curiously, there are some studies which indicate that the more religious a place, the more violent it is. At an individual level, religion seems to benefit people. But at a collective level, religion doesn't correlate, high religious faith doesn't correlate with greater well-being. So now there are various reasons for this. One major reason is that where in today's world large number of people are religious, it is often because of two factors. One is because it is a state-ordained religion. The state is forcing people to believe in, you have to practice this, you have to practice this, you have to practice this. And religious faith is something which has to be embraced. It cannot be imposed. If it is imposed, people become simply superficial, people become hypocritical. In the so when people become hypocritical, then they put on a facade of being religious, but they do all kinds of non-religious or anti-religious things. Another reason they say is that quite often people embrace religion at a collective level because they are in a lot of distress. So people who are in a economically deprived area, so a church or a religious organization may offer them some relief. But if you will see, when that happens, at that level, because people are economically deprived, the crime in that area seems to be more. So there is a causal connection and there's a correlational connection. So causal and correlational in science, these are two different things. I suppose we find that people who service their cars regularly, their cars last longer. Cars function well longer. Now this could be because the regular servicing maintains the car better, or it could also be that people who have the habit of servicing the cars regularly, because they are regulated, they also drive their car properly. They also overall take care of the car, and that's why the car goes longer. So when many of you know our tradition this way: if a bird comes and sits on the tree, and a fruit falls down. So now, and the bird flies away. So now, what caused what? Because the bird sat on the tree, that's why the fruit fell down? Or the fruit fell down and because of the bird got alarmed and the bird flew away? Or they are completely unrelated events. Now, the bird we can't speak and find out. The fruit is not a conscious being for us again to talk with. So we can't know. So sometimes things happen in a way that we can't exactly correlate. So this example I gave so as to point out that at a material level, we cannot always perceive the effects of transcendence in a predictable way. At a material level, some studies may indicate, religious faith is good. And those who want to believe in God, they say, yeah, they see all this is true. And those people who don't want to believe in God, they will point out, no, religious faith, it should be. See, people who are, where religious faith becomes more, people become more violent. Now, it's not true that where religious faith becomes more, people become more violent. It is that wherever religious faith is state administered, their violence seems to be more. But it has also been true that wherever atheism has been state administered, there also violence has been there. The biggest violence that happened in the recent world was in the communist bloc. In Soviet Russia and China, actually almost the number of people that were killed by state-sponsored violence were more than the number of people killed in the First World War and Second World War combined together. So, where am I going by all this analysis? I'm making the point that Krishna is transcendental. And Krishna cannot be perceived directly by what we see in this world. He can be inferred. So, Prabhupada gives an example that if we are sitting in a house and we want to see the sun, when the sun rises, we can see the sunlight. But if the sun doesn't rise, then no matter what we do, we cannot see the sun. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur would tell the story that there was once a very wealthy landlord, And he said, I want to see the sun. Fine. He said, yes, yes, tomorrow morning the sun will rise. You can see it. Oh, I want to see the sun in the night. No, you can't see the sun in the night. No. He said, you can see when it's the night, it is dark, but if we put on a light, we'll be able to see. We see things in the dark also. So he said that, let's make a very bright light. And we'll make such a bright light that we'll see the sun at night. And wherever there are wealthy people, there are usually other people who want to exploit the wealthy people. So the other person came along, yes, whatever is your desire will fulfill. But we'll have to make a very big light. We had to make a bigger light. And simply started fleecing money from this landlord. And eventually, he said that we'll make a big light. All that happened was, the light was becoming bigger and bigger. The treasury of the landlord was becoming smaller and smaller. And eventually, the treasury became empty. The light lit, but there was no sun to be seen at night. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur tells the story to illustrate how that just as we cannot demand that the sun be seen at night, similarly, we cannot demand that we see God. Science and scientific studies can point towards God, but God is above science. You cannot see Him directly. Similarly, whatever we do, it's that we may go to a temple, we may go to a dham, we may do various religious activities. By them alone, we can't see God. So the sun is seen when by its own accord it rises. So similarly, we see the sun by service attitudes. Sevon mukhe jivadau swayameva spuratyada. Sevon mukhe. When we serve Krishna, when we are pleased with our service, then swayameva, by his own free will, spuratyada, he manifests. So Krishna manifests by his choice, when he is pleased with our service. The spuratya is associated with the word spurti. So spurti is different from smruti. Smruti is recollection, and spurti is, we could say, inspiration. So recollection means that we consciously strive to remember Krishna. I'll think about this pastime, I'll think about that philosophy, that verse, I'll think about this, I'll think about that. So through spurti, we consciously try to remember Krishna. But through that spurti. But spurti means Krishna himself manifests his remembrance within us. So the Vrajavasis who were in Vrindavan, they were constantly remembering Krishna. The Krishna was their heart and soul. But even then, sometimes they would get spurti. Krishna would reveal within their hearts, just get lost. When Uddhava, who was himself a great devotee, when he went from Mathura and later from Dwarka, he went to meet the Vrajavasis to console them. Krishna, the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, had 90 chapters. The first 40 chapters describe Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. The next 10 chapters, Krishna is in Dwarka. And from the 51st chapter, Krishna is in, next 10 chapters is in Mathura. And then last 4 chapters, overall, they describe Krishna in Dwarka. Or like Krishna doesn't stay in Dwarka, he goes to various places from there. But when Uddhava goes to Vrindavan and he sees the Vrajavasis, he's talking about Krishna, and he's a devotee, and he can understand other devotees at what level they are. He's stunned to see the level of spontaneous absorption in Krishna that the Vrajavasis have, that Nanda Maharaj Yashoda have, and then the gopis have. And he tries to tell them that, your life is perfected. You have such a love for Krishna. And the Vrajavasis, they just can't appreciate what he's saying. If we had so much love for Krishna, then why did Krishna leave and go? If Krishna left us, then what is our love for Krishna? What is the use of loving Krishna? So for them, They were completely absorbed in Krishna. And that absorption was not by their conscious meditation. It was not by their conscious attempt to focus on Krishna. It was simply by Krishna being pleased and Krishna revealing himself from within. Na bhaved grahayam indriyai. This is a topic that Krishna talks, this is addressed in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also, where Parikshit Maharaj asked this question, that if Krishna is transcendental, then how can he perceive the senses? He said Krishna is transcendental, so Krishna cannot be seen with the eyes, Krishna cannot be heard with the ears, Krishna cannot be chanted about with the tongue. Then why are we practicing bhakti if Krishna cannot be experienced by all this? So it's a complex philosophical answer that is given over there. What is explained is in three parts. First part is that yes, it is true that Krishna is transcendental and we can't perceive him with our senses. But when we direct our senses in a mood of service towards Krishna, then that expresses our heart's desire to Krishna. Then, so when we use our senses, that's why the idea here is Ataha Shri Krishna Bhaved Namadi Na Bhaved Grahayam, Sevam Mukhe Jiva. So when we chant Krishna's names, even when we go to the temple like the darshan of Krishna, even when we recite Krishna's pastimes, at that time, what are we doing? We can't force Krishna to manifest. We can't just experience Krishna directly. What we do is, we serve Krishna with whatever abilities we have, with whatever resources we have. And when we serve Krishna with these resources, then Krishna becomes pleased. And when Krishna becomes pleased, then he chooses to manifest. So in that sense, the experience of Krishna is categorically different from the experience of anything else in this world. As a poet, a poet who's written about Lord Ram, and he's composing poetry about Lord Ram, and he says Lord Ram's eyes are as beautiful as, and he looks around in the world, thinks, says, Lord Ram's eyes are as beautiful as Lord Ram's eyes. There's no point to compare. Similarly, the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, book written by Jiva Goswami, so he describes that the various kings who had been imprisoned by Jarasandha. And these kings who had been imprisoned by Jarasandha, they are released by Krishna. And when they are released by Krishna, at that time, and they pray to Krishna. And then they say that, actually, O Lord, when we were hoping that you will rescue us, we offered many prayers to you, and we thought we were glorifying you with great choice poetry. But now that we have beheld you, now that we have seen you, now we understand that actually our glorification was actually an insult. Why an insult? He said, it is like you, somebody living in a small village, but their conception of a wealthy person is the landlord of the village. Oh, he has so much wealth. Now, again, I think in Bhaktisaraj Thakur, one of the Acharyas tells a story that once a king is going through a village, and there's an old woman who is carrying some basket on her back. So the king is just walking incognito, secretly, and the king sees that, hey, I'll carry that for you. And he carries it for her, and the old lady is very pleased. She says, oh, you're so kind. May God bless you. May you become as wealthy as the landlord in this village. Now, in her experience, the landlord is the wealthiest person. Now the king says, I am millions of times wealthier than the landlord. From her scale of reference, what is it? It is actually the landlord who is the wealthiest person. So similarly for us, Similarly for us Krishna, we have no experience of Krishna. So we offer some comparisons with this world to give us some indication of Krishna's beauty. But those comparisons are inadequate. The Acharya say that Krishna is blue. So once some devotees, they read in Prabhupada's books that Krishna is blue in color. Krishna is, and then they were making deities in their temple, and they went and made the deities completely blue in color. Normally we have Krishna is now depicted in dark complexions or in white complexion. We had Krishna completely blue. And then they would, what is this? No, Krishna is blue. Says Krishna is blue, but he's not the blue that we experience. Krishna, when we say he's blue, whatever descriptions that we have in scripture of Krishna, actually they are indicative, they are not descriptive. They point us in the direction of Krishna. But ultimately when we experience Krishna, it's an entirely different experience. When we use words to describe Krishna, it is not that the words can actually describe Krishna. The words give us some indication to direct our thought. And ultimately it is through realization that we experience Krishna. So for us, it is, if we want to experience Krishna, if you want to go closer to Krishna, it is the service attitude, it is the commitment to serving Krishna that is the most important. So, Srila Prabhupada, when he started the Krishna consciousness movement, at that time, initially the devotees knew nothing about Krishna. In fact, when Prabhupada first time he was in that storefront at 22nd Avenue in New York. At that time he was conducting a program and the devotees thought that they were not devotees, they just become devotees. But let's do something to please Swamiji. And they got various pictures. What they thought were traditional Indian pictures, they went to the near Indian shop and they got various pictures and put them there. And then Prabhupada came and looked at all the pictures. And then there was a picture of Hanuman lifting mountain, the famous picture of Hanuman going across the sky. And the devotee had no idea what it is. Prabhupada said, oh, this is very nice. So Prabhupada said, Swami, what is this? Is it a cat? Said Prabhupada, this is not a cat. Hanuman is worshipped by millions of people in India. Disciples had no idea of what was what. So Jesus didn't have any background. But the way Prabhupada talked about Krishna, the way Prabhupada inspired them by telling about Krishna, they were ready to give up their life for serving Krishna. And they were so dedicated, traveling across the world to share Krishna's messages in various parts of the world. But they also expected, Hayagriva Prabhu was one of Prabhupada's early disciples. And he came to Prabhupada one day and says, Swamiji, I've been chanting 16 rounds and following the regular principles for a full 6 months. I've still not seen Krishna. When will I see Krishna? So Prabhupada just looked at him and Prabhupada gave him the Bhagavad Gita. He said, read this. So he says that he was a little surprised. He was expecting an answer. Then he read it. It is the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is being requested to show the universal form. Manyasya yadi tachakyam maya drashtumiti prabho yogeshwar tato me tvam darshayan atma bhuyam. So he says that, Arjuna is praying, my dear Lord, if you think it is possible for me to see your magnificent, your universal form, then please reveal this form to me. So Prabhupada said, read this. He said, read it. Read again. And he read it again. And he says that, okay. So Prabhupada says, Manyasya yadi tachakyam maya drashtumiti prabho. If you, O Lord, think that it is possible for me to see your form, then please relate to me. So, Prabhupada, he said that we cannot demand that Krishna show himself to us. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur had some very provocative or thought-provoking, sure you want to put it, thought-provoking ways of talking about spiritual truths. So he said that no one can gate crash into the kingdom of God. No one can think, I have done so much bhakti, now I want to gate crash into the kingdom of God. Now, whatever devotion we have, we cannot just, no matter what we do, we cannot demand that the sun rise. The sun will rise of its own accord. So similarly, Krishna will manifest by his own plan. Now, does that mean we just can't do anything? We just sit and wait? No, not like that. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati ruttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So here Prabhupada describes 2 levels of devotion. That if we just hear and chant about Krishna, by that itself, nashta prayeshu bhadreshu, many of the abhadras, many of the inauspicious things in our heart will get destroyed. So then the Prabhupada writes that even by the mechanical act of chanting and hearing about Krishna, that itself will keep our conditionings at bay. They will hold the conditionings back. But the conditionings will get eliminated by Krishna's mercy. So I'll conclude with this analysis. It may take some time, but there are 2 aspects. If there is some darkness, or now if the room is dark, one option is that we light a flashlight, and then we see our way. Okay, this direction go, this direction not go, this direction I should go. Now, as soon as the flashlight is turned off, the darkness will be there. As long as the flashlight is on, the light is there. But if the electric power comes back, say the power is gone off, electric power comes back, then the light is there. Or even bigger, if you say the sunlight comes along, then there is no need for the flashlight. The light is just there straight. So if we are in dark, at that time, darkness is the prominent thing. And our attempt to light is constantly trying to push back the darkness. And as soon as the flashlight goes off, the darkness takes over. But when the sun rises, at that time, there is no need to fight off the darkness. The darkness is simply removed. So similarly, these metaphors talk about the seeker stage and the seer stage in bhakti. In the seeker stage, bhakti is like our flashlight. The practice of bhakti, it is by the practice of bhakti that we fight back our conditionings. We feel anger, we feel depression, we feel greed, we feel lust, we feel this, we feel envy, we feel all these different emotions. These are not good for me. They're not devotional. I don't want them. So we fight them back by the practice of bhakti. So at that time, we start feeling angry, we chant Hare Krishna, we pray to Krishna, and we divert. No, I'm feeling angry, but I'm not going to vent out my anger. And we control ourselves. And it works. If we actually practice bhakti, the negativity that is there, it gets fought back. It's pushed back. But after some time it comes back again. Again we push back. It comes back, we push back. So it goes on. That is the tug of war that goes on in the seeker's heart. But mechanically, by the practice of bhakti, the conditionings can be pushed back. However, when we rise to the stage of seer, when we become purified, then Krishna becomes manifested in our heart. So I earlier talked about smriti and spurti. Smriti is where we are trying to remember Krishna. We are trying to concentrate our mind on Krishna. We are trying to chant names of Krishna attentively. We are trying to study about Krishna. The smriti is where it's like with a flashlight, we're pushing back the darkness. We're pushing back the darkness. But spurti is like the sun rising. Once the sun rises, then by a higher arrangement, the darkness just gets dissipated. So when Krishna self-manifests in our heart, at that time, the ignorance, the darkness, all the lower cravings just disappear and they disappear forever. Whereas in this world, the sun rises also, the sun will set after some time. But when the Krishna sun rises in the heart, then he never sets. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yomam pashyati sarvatra. One who sees me everywhere, sarvam cha mai pashyati. One who sees everything in me. Tasyaham na pranashyami. That person is never lost to me, nor am I ever lost to that person. Sacha me na pranashyati. And this verse, where one sees Krishna everywhere and sees everything in Krishna, this verse is actually describing a very exalted level of devotion that is often very rarely seen in this world. The gopis of Vrindavan described this level, they depicted this level of devotion. When Krishna disappeared, when the gopis had gone to meet Krishna in Vrindavan, and the interaction of the gopis with Krishna described in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's 5 chapters, 29 to 33, which are called the Ras Panchadhyaya. And in that, the first chapter describes the gopis hear Krishna's flute and they run to see Krishna. The second chapter describes how the gopis see Krishna and there is some talk between the gopis and Krishna, and then Krishna disappears. The 31st chapter describes the gopis sing the song, the Gopi Gita, in intense separation from Krishna, begging Krishna to appear. And in the 32nd chapter, Krishna appears. And when Krishna appears, at that time again the gopis and Krishna have a talk with each other. And then in the 33rd chapter, the Rasa dance is performed between the gopis and Krishna. So now in the 32nd chapter, and this is a series of 4 classes. It's very exalted topic. I'll focus on our theme of when God will be seen. So when the gopis Krishna has come back, at one level the gopis are angry with Krishna. How could you left us like this and gone away? We left and everything came for you. You left us and went away like this. How can you do that? But at the same time, they are afraid. If they express their anger to Krishna, Krishna may go away. And they don't want that. Sometimes, say if a child suddenly runs away from home, the parents are mad with fear and they're mad with anger also. Now when the child is found and the child comes back home, at one point, the parents hug the child, where are you? They're happy the child has come back. At the same time, they're angry. How can you go away like this? But if they express the anger, the child may go away. So you don't know, at that time, we are caught in so many emotions, you don't know which emotion to express and how to express that emotion. So at that time, the gopis speak to Krishna indirectly. And they say, Krishna, there are different kinds of lovers in this world. There are some lovers, you love, if we love that lover, they love back. And they love back to the different questions they ask, I'll go into specifics. That, you offer love and they love back in proportion. Sometimes we love and they love us back more than us. But sometimes we love and they don't care at all. So now they don't refer to Krishna, but sometimes, sometimes people speak about someone in such a way that they don't mention the name, but everybody understands who it is. So, similarly, Krishna also understands what the gopis are talking about. And then Krishna replies that actually, even if... So basically they are asking, which kind of among these, which lover is the best? So Krishna replies that actually, he says, I love everyone. Even those who don't care for me, I love them, even them also. He is present in our hearts, and although we don't care for him, still he stays in our heart. So he doesn't abandon even those who turn away from him. So in that sense, Krishna loves everyone. And those who turn towards him, he reciprocates. But he says the highest level, when it's like we turn away from Krishna, Krishna still stays with us. We turn towards him, then Krishna comes closer to us. We become united in love with Krishna. But at the highest level, the gopis, they don't see Krishna, and yet they're seeing Krishna everywhere. When they're separated from Krishna, there's a talk. They look at the trees and say, "Oh, trees, you must have seen Krishna. Where is Krishna?" They look at the bumblebees and they say, "Oh, you are friends of Krishna. Please tell us, where is Krishna?" They look at the tulsi plant and say, "Oh, you are a great devotee of Krishna. Please tell us, where is Krishna?" They look at the deer, they look at everything, and they just completely absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Not only absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, they are actually enacting the pastimes of Krishna. So, Krishna explains to them that to see me when I am present, to have me present before you, that is a great fortune, to have the direct sakshat darshan of Krishna. That is a great fortune. He said, but gopis, you have exhibited such devotion that even when I am not present, you are seeing me everywhere. There are people like Duryodhana, and Krishna is present in front of them, and they can't see Krishna. Hey, Krishna is just doing some magic. He is not God. So here, actually, the gopis were seeing Krishna in their heart constantly, even when Krishna had disappeared from them. And Krishna said, I disappeared from you so that you could see me constantly with you, so that your love could rise to such a high level that you perceive me constantly. It is that you have attained such devotion, you have done such service to me, I can never repay you. God is saying, I can never repay you. So this is the highest tribute that Krishna can offer to anyone. Says, your service pleases me so much. You have such devotion for me that I cannot do anything for you. Therefore, you will be satisfied with your service. Hanuman comes back after going to Lanka, finding Sita, burning half of Lanka, and then when he comes back and Ram informs Ram about his adventure. Ram is so pleased. And he says, oh Hanuman, you have done such service to me. He says that I have nothing to offer you. I'm just an exiled prince right now. I have nothing to offer you, therefore I'll offer you only one thing. I'll offer you my embrace. And he embraces Hanuman. Now the Acharyas explain, Ramayana commentators explain, that ultimately Lord's form is the supreme treasure. He is the object of meditation for the greatest of the yogis. And when the Lord Ram offers Hanuman his embrace, the Lord is offering himself. And that is the greatest reward. That is the greatest reward. So, the point is that even when we can't see Krishna directly, even when the gopis could see Krishna, Krishna went away so that they would constantly see Krishna within. And how were they seeing Krishna? Because they had such a great desire to serve Krishna. When the gopis came to the forest, it was to serve Krishna. The gopis thinking, Krishna, you have gone away from us and that is causing us great distress. But even greater distress we are suffering because we are thinking you are alone in the forest and your feet are being scratched by the pebbles and the thorns and the twigs in the forest. And thinking that your feet are scratched, that is causing our heart to rip apart. Be ripped apart. Please come back, Krishna. So Krishna tells Narada Muni, in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna gives him one darshan. And then Narada Muni still sees he's Narada boy, and disappears. And then Narada tries to see again and again and again. He tries to repeat the process, but he can't see. But then Narada he hears an invisible voice. He says, because you are not yet pure at heart, you will not be able to see me. But I gave you this one glimpse so that you could follow the process of purification. I gave you this one glimpse so that you will hanker for me more and more. And as you hanker for me more and more, all your worldly hankerings will disappear by that. As your worldly hankerings will disappear, then you will see me constantly. So in that life, Narada can't see the Lord much beyond that one glimpse, but he becomes intensely devoted. And then eventually the Lord reveals himself, and then Narada travels across the universe singing the glories of the Lord. So that happens because the Lord reveals himself. So bhakti is a process of devotion is a combination of human dedication and divine revelation. Human dedication. With dedication, you practice bhakti. And then in reciprocation, there is a divine revelation. So we cannot accelerate the divine revelation by simply mechanical means. I'll just go from this place to this place, I'll go advance more. I'll go from this person to that person. I'm reading this book, there's not much knowledge. I'll read that book, then I'll get much knowledge. Chanting this mantra, that's not everything. I'll chant that mantra. Just changing these externals, they alone will not lead to spiritual advancement. It is the human dedication that is required. When we committed way serve Krishna, it attracts the divine revelation. So to the extent we become dedicated to Krishna, that the connection with Krishna will be established, and we will start experiencing satisfaction even in this life. And ultimately, we'll experience the supreme satisfaction as we become connected with Krishna constantly, both through our recollection and his revelation. So I'll summarize. I spoke today about how Krishna can be seen and how he can't be seen. And I started by talking about how all knowledge comes from God, but it doesn't begin from God. Our human inquiry, we look at the world around us, we look at the people around us, we look at ourselves. So through the psychological, sociological, or the cosmological approaches, then we may think about higher realities. Most people, even when they think about God, they're not really thinking about God. They're thinking about what God can do to set things right in these three levels of realities. So when we ask God for bread, it shows our love for bread, not necessarily love for God. So then, how is God to be approached separately? So when people get artha and kama, they feel there's no need for artha. So they no need for dharma. I talked about how at individual level, religious faith seems to benefit people, but at a collective level, societies which are religious are not necessarily better societies. That is because it may be that people are more economically deprived, or people are more hypocritical because religion is forced on them. So at the material level, we can't necessarily in a predictable way perceive the effect of transcendence. So Krishna is transcendental, he has to be pursued in a transcendental way. It's like we cannot just light a lamp and make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we see the sun. The sun rises of its own accord. Similarly, by human reasoning alone, we cannot force God's presence. God's presence will come by his revelation. Then I talk about then what is the purpose of the practice of bhakti, which we are doing with our senses. This we do simply to serve the Lord. Whatever facilities we have, the body, the senses, the mind is a facility that we have. We use them to serve the Lord. And by serving the Lord, we please him. When our service pleases him, then he reciprocates with his revelation. And so his revelation is what leads to the perception of the Lord. So I talked about smriti being our human recollection and sphuti being the divine revelation. And the Rajvasis were constantly, intermittently, but very frequently getting absorbed in sphuti of the Lord. And the human, we talk about, with our sadhana bhakti, is it that if Krishna doesn't reveal himself, what is the use of sadhana bhakti? Sadhana bhakti is like using the torch to see our way in the darkness. The torch just helps in pushing back the darkness. The next time we practice sadhana bhakti, our anarthas do subside. But then, as soon as sadhana bhakti's intensity goes down, the anarthas come back. But eventually, when attraction to Krishna awakens, when Krishna reveals himself, at that time it's like the sun rising. There is no torch needed. It doesn't mean we stop sadhana bhakti. We still do the bhakti activities, but we'll do them actually out of love for Krishna. And we don't do them, or we don't need them to dissipate the darkness in the heart. Our darkness is already dissipated in Krishna's presence. I concluded by talking about how the gopis, they were seeing Krishna in front of them, and Krishna disappeared, and started seeing Krishna deeply, constantly in their hearts. So, the seeing Krishna in his absence is the zenith, the pinnacle of Krishna consciousness. And that is exhibited by the gopis. And for us, the sadhakas also, for Narada, he saw Krishna and then he could no longer see Krishna. But then that created within a hankering to see Krishna. And that purified him of everything else. And then he came to live in Krishna's presence constantly. Similarly, for us at the sadhaka stage, sometimes we will get some spurti. We'll get absorbed in the kirtan, we will hear some class, we will get some deep insight and just transform us. But for the remaining time, we have to cultivate smriti, consciously try to remember Krishna. And by this remembrance of Krishna, as we become purified, then slowly and surely we will rise to the stage where we will please Krishna, and by Krishna's self-revelation, the heart will be filled with Krishna. We cannot gate crash into the kingdom of Krishna. We cannot simply by relocating from here to there or changing some external suddenly see Krishna. It is only by the human dedication that we attract the divine revelation. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes.
You mentioned that through sadhana, using as a torch example, we keep an anthas or darkness at bay. My first experience is, even while doing sadhanas, I feel anarthas don't go down, don't disappear. Even while chanting, your mind can think of very absurd thought, which you're not proud of. So, does that mean that my sadhana is Krishna's name is not working? I'm chanting Hare Krishna, my mind wanders to something I don't want to wander.
Mm-hmm.
How do we explain this?
Yeah.
And you've been chanting for many years.
Yeah. If we say the chant by sadhana bhakti, we keep our thoughts back. But sometimes while chanting also, we get many absurd thoughts. So why is that? See, it's like, suppose there are thieves. And if you have a gun, and you shoot the gun, when you shoot in the air, the thieves will run away. So sometimes, like, there is some rioters who are doing a riot, and then the police just show that we have a gun, they shoot in the gun, shoot, and they run away. But suppose there are thieves, and those thieves know that this person doesn't know how to take him and shoot a gun. So if they hear a gunshot, then the thieves will themselves come there to catch the gun. So normally the shooting of the gun will drive away the thieves. But in some special situation, the shooting of the gun may attract the thieves. Why? Because they feel, oh, this person has a gun and the person doesn't know how to use the gun. So we will take the gun and we'll use it for our purposes. So then at that time, the shooting of the gun, in the gunshots, they simply inform the thief that there is a gun over here. And then it attracts them to come. So the gunshot is meant to drive away thieves, but in this case the gunshot can have the exact opposite effect. So similarly for us, the chanting of the holy names and the remembrance of Krishna certainly has the capacity to drive away the demons. But for that, we have to at least strive to absorb our consciousness in Krishna. But if we are not doing that, then we are chanting, but our mind is going free. I say, at least if we are driving a car through a crowded road, then the soul is here, the mind is here, the body is here. Now the soul's consciousness normally comes through the mind to the body, and then goes to the outer world. So when in the outer world there is some unpredictability, some uncertainty, then at that time we are forced to pay attention. Right? Oh, this car is coming from here, this car is coming from here. So, even if the mind is saying something, we don't pay much attention over there. Because we need to pay physically attention at the physical level. But then, especially in America, you drive cross country, long distances, clear roads. So,
Cruise control.
people just lose focus. See that? And people just nod off for some time on the road. And they nod off and then the car goes off. It can be very dangerous. So when at the physical level our attention is not required, then our attention goes off at the mental level. So during chanting, because the same mantra is being chanted again and again, we often feel like this is not very interesting. So then at that time, we are chanting the mantra at the physical level, but we are not really investing our consciousness there. And then wherever the mind is going, we are going along with that. So it is that when we are chanting, quite often we are not chanting. It is the tongue that is chanting, the mind is wandering, and the soul is thinking which of the two to do. And most of the time, the soul thinks that the mind's wandering is going to more interesting places. And thus, even the normal level, the attention that we have, the normal consciousness that we already have, that is also not there at time of chanting. At the normal level, we'll have some physical attention, some attention of thinking, okay, I'm here, I'm going there. But during chanting, we may grow even more absent-minded. That's why it's so vital that chanting be accompanied by hearing. Now, to the extent we hear about Krishna, we hear about the importance of remembering Krishna, we hear about the glory of the holy name, that will give us some impetus to ensure that we try to invest our consciousness in Krishna. And we can experience that our life has become transformed to some extent. We have become purified. Maybe at the time of chanting the mind is wandering, but still overall our anarthas have gone down. We have experienced some taste. That's why we are practicing bhakti. But over a period of time, when the chanting becomes too mechanical, then there's no consciousness involved in it. And that's why the mind almost, so chanting time means, it's like normally chanting is like the gunshot, the thieves will go away. All the material desires, they're like thieves, they'll go away. But when now we start chanting, it's like, hey, now for the next 2 hours, this person is not going to do anything practical. So we can come and do whatever we thought we want with this person's mind. Okay, take his thoughts here, take his thought there, take his thought there. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to do anything. So in this case, the gunshots attract the thieves to come. So, we can come and steal this gun. It's like that. So that's why it's important for us to focus ourselves on the purpose of our chanting. We have to try to remember that purpose and maybe have some thoughts, some quotes about the glories of the holy name which you keep in front of us while chant, or maybe hear something about the importance of chanting before we start chanting, or in between the chanting also, we try to take a little break and again read some verse about chanting, recite some thought about chanting, and remind ourselves. Then we will experience the potency of the chanting. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
You're talking how we can't see Krishna without material senses. In Bhagavad Gita, it's saying that if we can understand how Krishna is detached from this material world, then we also become transcendental. Can you explain that?
Okay. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that if we understand that Krishna is detached from this world, then we also become transcendental. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti mam yovijanati karma bhir nasabhadyate. As the verse you're talking about, this is the 4th chapter. Krishna says that those who understand namam karmani limpanti, that in third, fourth chapter that is going on, that the same thing comes several times. That when people understand that, when those who understand that I do not aspire for the results of, for the fruits of any work, for the results of any work. Namam karmani limpanti, name karma phalesuha. I am not attached to the fruits of work, nor am I attached to any kind of work. Iti mam yo bijanati. Those who understand this about me, karma bhir nasalipete. They also will not be attached to the fruits of their work. They will also not be bound by work. Because I am not bound by work, I am not attached to the fruits of work. Those who understand this about me, they will also not be bound by their work. So if you look at this verse and its broader context, the whole initial part of the Bhagavad Gita is about how we can work without bondage in this world, work without being bound by karma. And in that context, Krishna says that that while materialistic people may work with attachment, Saktah karmanya vidvam yatha kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvam tha asaktas chikirsha lokasangham. Just as the attached work with ignorance, because they are attached to the fruits of the work, the detached can similarly work in this world for setting an example for others. And he says, as a matter of that, in that context, he says, actually, even I work, although I have no duty. Yadi ham navartem jatu karmanyatidita. He says, although I have no duty in any one of the three worlds, still I'm very diligently engaged in work. Why? Because otherwise people will follow my example and they will be lost. So we could say that Krishna's pastimes in this world are, although they are in this world, they are not at all of this world. Krishna exists at a different level of reality, and from that level of reality, temporarily he manifests at this level. And when he manifests at this level, his purpose is primarily to attract us to him. So when we understand that Krishna is functioning simply as Leela in this world, he is not attached. When he fights, it's not that he wants some kingdom. It's not that he has some enemies whom he wants to kill. No, he is simply acting out of love for the welfare of everyone, even those who are being killed by his hands. So when we understand that Krishna is completely selflessly motivated, he has no selfish motivation of any kind. When we understand that, the conception that God is so loving and so lovable, when we understand that, then we cannot but fall in love with him. And when we fall in love with him, then we just are not attracted to any things of this world. So that janma karma cha me divyam evam yovati tapatha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swajana. That same theme is talked in the third chapter. Krishna elaborates the different focus in the fourth chapter. In the third chapter, he says that I act to set an example for others. And the fourth chapter, he says actually, third chapter says, I act to set an example for others, and those who understand this truth about me, they will not be bound. But then Krishna says in the fourth chapter that I am transcendental. And those who understand that my appearance and activities are transcendental, they become attached to me and they attain me. So in both ways, the stress is that Krishna's activities are not a part of this world. Krishna exists in a divine realm and just appears in this realm for giving us a glimpse of life in another. So I gave a whole class on this movie metaphor for understanding God's presence. I was talking about this horror movie. The example I gave, a child is watching the horror movie, child is very horrified. The mother is not affected. But the child says, so caught in the horror movie, that if the mother just tries to touch the child is thinking of the whole monster that is there in the horror movie, the shapeshifter, and the child thinks the mother is also that shapeshifter, and the child will get horrified. So the mother can't even touch the child at that time. So actually the super soul, Krishna, is right next to us in our own hearts. But we can't perceive His presence. Because we are so caught in this world, pursuing various things which we hope will give us pleasure, or avoiding various things which we fear will cause us trouble, that we have no mental space left for perceiving Krishna. So when we are so consumed by this, how will Krishna manifest to us? So as the mother is seeing this child is watching this TV and absorbed in the TV, and the mother is next, but the mother cannot touch the child. So what does the mother do? The child is watching the TV and the mother has another remote. And with that remote, the mother just quietly changes the channel. The channel changes. At that time, the mother starts some other recording where she is with her other children and she is playing with the children and the children are so happy with her. They're all around her and they're playing. And this child sees, hey, what is this? This is so nice, no? Nice. It's so soothing, this is so sweet, it's so nice. And sometimes there are TVs which are almost like you have multi-channel TVs. On one big TV screen, you can see multiple channels, multiple programs that you can see. So I was at one place, they were having like 4 channels on the same screen, and there's one person with 4 remotes. Simultaneously scrolling through all 4 channels, trying to find something interesting. This guy is going to a hotel for a program, so there in the hotel lounge this person was sitting. Anyway, so suppose there is one channel, there is one program is going on. In another channel, the mother starts this program with this video footage of she with her children and a sweet loving reciprocation. This child is watching the horror movie. Hey, what is this? That's nice. Let me see this. Child starts watching that. And the child sees the mother with the children. Oh, she's so sweet, she's so nice. Who is she? I want to know more about her. And as the child starts watching this program more and more, he starts getting more and more attached. Oh, this is a nice person. And as he gets more and more attached, and the child is watching, the child feels more comfortable, more peaceful. And then the mother approaches the child and the child says, oh, you're there, you're here, oh, wonderful. And the child embraces the mother. So like that, for us, although Krishna is present right next to the spiritual level, we can't perceive him right now. So what Krishna does is, he manifests at the material level and performs pastimes. So here, we hear so much about this sports star, this movie star, this politician, this, that. About so many people and their activities we keep hearing in this world. When Krishna manifests in this world, we have an opportunity to hear about him also. And if we can get attracted to Krishna when we hear about him, then it's like we start watching that channel. And when Krishna manifests in this world and when we hear about Krishna, still we are hearing with our material senses only. But, so we are here, the TV screen is here. And we are watching now, the child is watching the mother also on the TV screen only. But by becoming attached to the child, to the mother on the TV screen, the child becomes more receptive. And when the mother touches, the mother manifests over here, the child accepts, the child connects. So similarly for us, when Krishna manifests in the material realm, whether it is when he was there on the planet performing his pastimes, or now when we hear about his pastimes with our material ears, by this, our consciousness gets slowly attracted towards him. And the more our consciousness becomes attached to him, then we become more receptive, more attuned to Krishna's presence within us. And then eventually, when we are ready, just turn, we see Krishna, that same Lord whom we have been hearing for so long, he's with us right now. With us, and that brings us great joy. So that's how, when we understand it, Krishna is not just, is Krishna's pastimes or Krishna's activities are not just another entertainment plot. They are about a person who is real, who is eternally real, and who really loves me, who's right next to me. At that time when we understand it, then snap out of illusion. That's how when we understand that Krishna is not obligated, Krishna is not bound, Krishna is not materially desirous, Krishna is transcendental, then we also become transcendental. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Just one question. If we know that we are part and participant of God or Krishna, and eventually our aim is to go back to God and Krishna himself. And why we have creation in first place? So basically my question is, if our ultimate aim is to go back to Krishna when we were already there before we were born, then what was the purpose of this creation, and
What is the purpose of creation? The purpose of creation is to give souls an opportunity to experience life according to their free will. The very nature of love is there has to be free will. And if a boy goes to a girl and wants to propose to that girl, he falls on the knees, offers her a flower, offers her a ring, please marry me. She says no. It takes a lot. Marry me or I'll kill you. Now, that is not love. If there is force, there cannot be any love over there. So, all of us have been given free will. And the very existence of free will necessitates the existence of an arena where free will can be exercised. You can do whatever you want, provided you don't do anything I don't want. So you're absolutely free to express your mind as long as you agree with me. That is pseudo freedom, that is not freedom. So Krishna has given us free will, and because he's given us free will, that also means we are given the arena to exercise that free will. And that arena to exercise the free will is this world. So in this world, broadly speaking, the world serves two purposes. One is experimentation and the other is rectification. Experimentation means, okay, I want to use my free will and do 100 other things, a million other things. Yes. What do you want to experiment? Try it out. Think this will make me happy, this will make me happy, this will make me happy. Try it out. So we have various species of life and various varieties of enjoyments in this world through which we can experiment. And after that, when we realize, oh, no, this really gives me happiness, there is a rectification. Rectification means at that time, we start turning towards Krishna. We start redirecting our heart towards Krishna. And for that also, the world offers us facility. And we want to turn. So the world has this, so the existence in this world is firstly, it's an arena where we can execute our free will, exercise our free will. And then in that exercise of free will, there is experimentation, rectification, both of which are served by this world. Okay? Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Stop here. Yeah.
There are many subjects on which science and spirituality are at loggerheads with each other. So on these subjects, do we try to reconcile science and spirituality?
Like which ones?
It can be, well, there is the whole aspect of cosmology. So several aspects of cosmology are at loggerheads with each other. There is Darwinian evolution. There is, within cosmology itself, we're talking about the solar system, the belief of about what stars are,
Okay.
belief of life within the solar system.
Okay, I understand where you're probably coming from. So, if there are areas where science and spirituality are at loggerheads, do we try to reconcile them? See, first of all, I have a whole series of 3 seminars on reconciling science and spirituality, or understanding that, basically. I'll talk about some broad principles here. First is, we have to begin with purpose. What is the purpose of scripture and what is the purpose of science? When Shukadeva Goswami is speaking the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, he is a person about to die. He is a person who has renounced the whole world. At that time, he is not interested in cosmology. He is not interested in geography. It is very clear. If he had been interested in cosmology and geography, why would he renounce the kingdom and come and sit on the banks of the Ganga? He's interested only in God. He's interested in fixing his mind only on God. So, the purpose of the Bhagavatam is to help the seeker fix the mind on God. The Bhagavatam is not primarily a book on cosmology. So, every book presents things with a particular purpose in mind. And if we miss that purpose, then we will get diverted in 100 other directions. Let me complete my point. Now, the Bhagavatam gives some description of the cosmology in the 5th canto. The Bhagavatam gives some description of universal origins in the 3rd canto and other places, 6th canto for example. But all this is presented in a theistic context. Theistic context means it is all presented for the purpose of fixing the mind on Krishna. If you look at the 50, I was once a part of the cosmology team that was helping in coming up with some model for the planetarium, which we are trying to build in Mayapur. So studied these sections a bit. So if you see the 15 chapters of the 25 chapters of the 5th canto, they describe cosmology. But if you go into those chapters, the number of verses that describe cosmological dimensions, there are very few. There is 1/4 of even those chapters, even 1/5 you could say. Most of the time is, okay, on this planet, this particular Devata is being, this particular form of the Lord is being worshipped, and these people worship this form of the Lord by chanting these prayers. On this particular planet, this Devata is being worshipped, and this is how they are worshipping it. So the purpose, and if you look at the start of the 15th chapter, the end of the 25th chapter and throughout, the whole point is, by understanding this universal, this cosmology, we'll be able to fix the mind on the Lord. So the purpose of the Bhagavatam is not to give an exhaustive description of cosmology. The purpose of the Bhagavatam's cosmology is to demonstrate to Parikshit Goswami how dharma and devotion pervade the whole universe. And therefore, O Parikshit, you also become devoted to the Lord. That is what illustrious beings throughout the world are doing. That is what you should do. So it's something like, say, we have Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrit. Say, imagine 1,000 years down the line, say somehow some nuclear weapon destroys all the books on the earth. And then somehow one copy of Leelamrit is left. And then in the Leelamrit it describes that Prabhupada traveled across America. Now, if after reading the Leelamrit, somebody decides based on the Leelamrit to construct a map of America. Prabhupada did go across America. And I said, okay, he was in Chicago, and then from there he flew across and he came to Los Angeles. Okay, that means Chicago and Los Angeles, they're not so close that you will drive. We'll have to go by flight. So we can get some understanding. But Leelamrit is not a geographical book. We can get some broad understanding, but we're not going to get a comprehensive understanding by it. That is not its purpose. So similarly, Bhagavatam is not giving exhaustive cosmology. Its purpose is to help us fix the mind on Krishna. And even within the tradition, for empirical purposes, so there is the transcendental purpose of fixing the mind on Krishna, and there is the empirical purpose of functioning within the world. So for empirical purposes, also for astrology, an amount of astronomy or cosmology is required. Astrology was a big part of our tradition in the past. But even the same acharyas who have commented on the Srimad Bhagavatam, if they are to do some astrological predictions or analyze some horoscopes, for that they don't use the Bhagavatam's cosmology. They use the cosmology that is called as the Jyotisha cosmology. Surya Siddhanta and other books are there, which describe cosmology in a very different way. And it's that cosmology that they use. So in the tradition itself, there is the transcendental cosmology of the Bhagavatam and there is the empirical cosmology of the Jyotishastras. And the traditional teachers themselves have not put these two in competition. For the purpose of meditating on the Lord, we use the transcendental cosmology. For the purpose of operating in this world, we use the empirical cosmology. So, yeah,
I have listened to your response. I have listened to your lectures on
Yeah.
the response to this exact question. I completely understand your point. Like, the purpose of spiritual texts is,
Okay.
spirituality. But then why is there so much importance and effort put in to reject Darwinian evolution? I mean, why are we even bothering about it? I mean, let science be itself and let
Okay.
spirituality be spirituality. Right?
So why are we putting in so much effort to reject Darwinian evolution? See, it depends on what exactly is being attempted. The point is not to combat any particular theory. The point is to combat atheism. Now, when we look at the way historically evolution has been used, evolution has been used by many atheists to justify the atheism or to give a scientific veneer, to give scientific justification for the atheism. So in fact, we could say evolution has become the bulwark of the foundation of the atheistic worldview in today's world. So Srila Prabhupada, if you look at his critique carefully, his focus is on rejecting atheism. This well-known conversation is called as life comes from life. So his point is that consciousness cannot evolve from matter. Consciousness is a fundamentally different entity. And whatever be the merits or demerits of Darwinian evolution, there are basically three broad theories which are used currently to explain universal origins. There is the Big Bang theory and its variants, by which they say the universe came about. And then there is some kind of chemical evolution by which the universe, by which consciousness emerged from matter. And then there is biological evolution. So you could say cosmological origin, the origin of the universe, origin of life, and origin of a species. So when Prabhupada is critiquing evolution, he is using evolution as a reference point for critiquing the atheistic account of the universe. The idea that without God we can explain everything. That is his point he's criticizing. So, and if you look specifically at life comes from life, the idea is that chemical evolution, how life originates from matter or consciousness emerges from matter. That is his thrust. Consciousness cannot emerge from matter. And even today, if we look at whatever be the merits of biological evolution theory, but chemical evolution or origin of consciousness from chemicals, it is stunningly ill-founded. There is just no explanation of how it happens. And beyond that, I have written a book on demystifying reincarnation. There I quote about how on the 125th anniversary of the Science magazine, they published a special issue. We are talking about 125 questions that science can't answer. The science doesn't know the answers to. That was a few decades ago, but even now science doesn't have the answer. About a decade and a half ago, even now science doesn't have answers to those questions. And the first among those questions was, where does the universe come from? Second is, where does consciousness come from? Of course, they phrase the question as implicit, what is the biological basis of consciousness? They are assuming that consciousness is a biological basis, but that itself is questionable. So these are questions which even science doesn't have answer to. So, have you heard my answers about inductive, deductive and abductive reasoning also?
No, not that.
Okay, basically, sometimes we think of this furthering, it might be a little technical for you, but I'll try to make it as simple as I can. See, we think of all science as equally credible sometimes. Scientists are telling this theory, that it must be scientific. But all science is not equally credible. The most credible science we could say is mathematics, which is deductive. Deductive means it is based on principles that have to be true. So 3 into 8 will be 9. 4 plus 5 will be 9. So this is deductive logic. This is universally true. It's basically like axioms. Then another form of reasoning that science uses is called inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning means we do many experiments, and then when those repeated experiments give a certain pattern of conclusions, then we infer this pattern, and we said this pattern is what will apply in future also. So for example, Newton saw the fruit falling. Oh, objects fall down. So then he postulated the law of gravity. And then he saw different objects in different parts of the world fall down. And we can also observe this, we can also experiment with this. So most of the dazzling technological successes that we see in the world around us, they are based on scientific findings that have come from inductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning is where science can observe repeatedly, can discern a pattern through those observations, and then can further do experiments to see if those patterns are confirmed. Okay, you could put it that way. I'll just complete this. But then it's not always physics only. But when we go to the third form of reasoning, which is called as abductive reasoning. Now this abductive doesn't have anything to do with abduction. Abduction is kidnapping. But what it means is that when science wants to arrive at some understanding of some events that have happened in the past, which we cannot replicate now. So for example, how life came about, how the universe came about, how various species came about, we can't replicate that. There are no repeated observations that we can do. There are no experiments that we can do. What to speak of repeated observations? There's not even one observation. It's all. Then how does science arrive at any understanding in these historical sciences? It is through a third form of reasoning, which is called abductive reasoning. Or another way to understand is inference to best explanation. Some of you may have read, say, investigation novels or seen some investigative movies. Whodunit kind of mysteries. Now there was this room in which this owner was staying, and he was seen alive at 6 o'clock in the evening. But at night, 10 o'clock, when his wife went to meet him, there was a knife in his belly. He was dead. Who killed him? Now, when you want to find out, when the investigators can't say, oh criminal, you come and commit the murder act once again and we'll catch you. You can't do that. So then, what do? Okay, there's a camera at the door. Between 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, who all went inside? Okay, there was this 5-year-old grandson who went inside. He's too small, he couldn't have killed. And there is this 75-year-old mother who went inside. She's also so weak that she cannot put the knife with that much power. And then, there's a 22-year-old butler who had gone inside. He must have killed. And then, what we do in this case is that this is called IBE, inference to best explanation. We look at various possibilities and we try to arrive at the explanation of we arrive at an inference of which is the most reasonable, most probable explanation. This is basically guesswork. Now, you say among these three options, this butler is the most reasonable. But somebody may not know that there is a closet in the room, and in that closet below there is a trapdoor. And through that trapdoor, a criminal had come in, murdered and went away. So when we are arriving at an inference to best explanation, it is at best guesswork. And it depends on all whether we know the original situation and how well we can replicate that situation. So especially with respect to sciences, with respect to origins, it is very, very difficult for science to do any kind of experiment. So that's why with respect to sciences of origins, the scientific theories also are very speculative. That's why we'll keep reading sometimes the news. A new fossil has been found, and the age of the earth, or the age of when human beings originated, where they originated, it keeps radically changing. John Wheeler is a prominent physicist. So he is teaching physics in university, and he quotes this in one of his books. He says that once one of his students asked him in class, he said, "Sir, there are so many cosmological theories. how to keep track of all of them. So he said that if you miss a bus, a girl, or a cosmological theory, don't run after it. Another one is soon coming. So, cosmological theories are very speculative. Now, this is not to criticize science, because most of the science that we use today, that does not come from deductive reasoning. The science which we find so credible, okay, I find it's this time over here, it means this must be that time in India. And that is the time that is India. There are many aspects of science that are very credible, but all these aspects of science which are credible, they have come either from deductive reasoning or from inductive reasoning. But unfortunately, not understanding this difference between which forms of reasoning are used by which forms of science, we assume that all scientific theories are of equal credibility. And therefore, we think that there's a conflict between science and scripture. Even within the scientific community, you will find the number of critics of evolution or Big Bang theory or whichever theory of cosmic origins that we may have. There are far more critics of that than there are critics of, say, the law of gravity, or there are critics of, say, Einstein's relativity physics or whatever. Why? Because that which is understood through inductive reasoning, that is much more credible. But that which is arrived at through abductive reasoning, its credibility is much, much lesser. So it's not that there is necessarily a conflict between science and scripture. The conflict is between a materialistic vision of life and a spiritual vision of life. And we have to see which vision of life explains life as we live it. The materialistic vision of life, it is very inadequate. It doesn't explain our emotions, it doesn't explain our the things that are deepest to us. Today with science and technology so advanced, people, when people want to form relationships now, say a boy and a girl, man and a woman, they want to form a relationship. There's so much insecurity. Does this person really care for me? Does this person really love me? Will this person make me through thick and thin? Now, if our scientific knowledge is advanced so much, why can't science, we have a thermometer, a barometer, why can't science make a love-o-meter? Before proposing, both partners put the love-o-meter on each other's heart, check the reading. We can't do that because...
We use lie detector.
Sorry?
Lie detector.
Oh, you can have lie detector. But, the lie detector can only detect certain patterns of brain function. But, lie detectors themselves, they cannot be used as irrefutable evidence in court. Because there are many cases where people who are, you could say, professional liars. So, it's like our brain is wired in a particular way. And normally, those who have a sense of conscience, when they lie, they feel uncomfortable lying. But somebody who just keeps lying regularly, they don't feel uncomfortable. And then, see, the lie detectors can detect a lie when the person at least feels a little bad when I'm lying. But if the person doesn't feel bad at all, then those chemicals, see, the lie detectors, no machine can evaluate the truth value of a statement. What the machine can evaluate is the brain state when we are making a particular statement. And the brain state is determined not just by the statements that we are making. The brain state is determined by also our attitude towards the statements. So it's when we feel uncomfortable while making that statement. That discomfort is what is caught by the mind, by the brain states. But if you don't feel that discomfort, say you and I, if we are vegetarians, and if we see an animal being slaughtered, then we feel revolted by that. And certain brain states will be generated within us. But if a person is a professional slaughterer, when they kill an animal, they don't feel any sense of revolt over there. So those same brain states will not be generated. So the point I'm making is that there are certain brain states which are generated associated with certain physical states or physical actions. But it's not just a linear correlation between physical actions and brain states. There's physical actions, emotional states, and brain states. So if those emotional states themselves are rewired, then the brain states also get disordered. That's why there are psychopaths and sociopaths and psychopaths. They kill heartlessly. And internally, the normal sense of revulsion, the sense of hesitation that we feel when we are about to hurt someone, they don't feel that. So the brain is rewired for them. That's why we cannot, at a mechanical means, by mechanical means, we cannot really find that out. So, so the point I'm making is that there is the material vision of life which can help in the functioning of the world at some level. Functioning in the world at some level. But for things that matter the most to us, the material vision of life is inadequate. So therefore, we turn toward the spiritual vision of life because that explains to us ourselves and life and its purpose in a more holistic way. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
So does it mean that when human was not born,
When
human beings were not born, the conscious people were not born, like animals were there, so there was no spirituality?
When humans were not born at that time, was there no spirituality? Well, whether there was a state when humans were not born at all, that itself is debatable. Because how do we know exactly whether humans were there or not on the planet? We know from fossils. So now, whenever we try to look for fossils of ancient beings, and based on that we try to infer the existence of who was existing at that time, that itself is abductive reasoning. It is not inductive, and there are at least three main problems with it. First problem is that the fossils, they are formed on the surface of the earth, and traditionally human beings have lived near the coastal areas or near the river areas because that's where we need water to live, and the water bodies are known to be enormously unpredictable. So generally the surface near the water, a lot of sedimentation happens. So the topsoil is just swept away, then the fossils, if for years and years they stay there, then they go deep inside. But otherwise, the fossils are primarily found on the surface of the earth. They form on the surface of the earth, and if humans were living near the river water bodies, then their fossils could be swept away. And so archaeologists say that if we could go down to the bottom of the oceans and explore over there, we might come to know a completely different picture of history, of ancient history. So archaeology itself is based on a very fragmented picture of the earth, because human remains could very well be at the bottom of the ocean, and whether they will stay there or they will just get dissolved by the water, that's also a question. Second thing is that if we consider the Vedic civilization, in Vedic civilization, the tradition was to cremate the bodies, not bury the bodies. And from the traditional understanding, the Vedic civilization was quite widespread in the past. And there's reasonable historical evidence to indicate that at least the Indus Valley civilization, the Saraswati civilization, it was quite advanced. So if that civilization had been there, and it's well known that for thousands of years people were burying the bodies. So if bodies were buried, then there's no chance of fossils. So if we were only looking for archaeological records in terms of fossils, then we would not find any fossils in the Indian subcontinent anywhere, practically speaking. And then you might come to the conclusion that the Indian subcontinent was uninhabited and they had a huge amount of population actually. So that's why the fossil record is very selective. And thirdly, in general the problem happens that say archaeological sciences, they are considered to be like luxury sciences. Luxury sciences means that places in the world where people are struggling for bread and butter, for basic livelihood, they don't have the time, or they don't have the resources or the time to do archaeological surveys. So in general, in the third world countries, we really haven't done exhaustive fossil research. So the point I'm making is that yes, we have found fossils of animals long in the past, and as of now, we may say that by the fossil records at that time, we have not found any human remains. Although we have a devout scientist, Dr. Michael Cremo, he's written a book called Forbidden History of the Human Race. So the Forbidden Archaeology and an abbreviated version of the book called The Hidden History of the Human Race. In that he talks about remote human antiquity. And he got quite persuasive evidence for that. But even if for argument's sake we say that the human fossils have not been found, all that will mean is that the fossils have not remained. Does that necessarily mean that human beings were not there? Not necessarily. It could be that even species like dinosaurs were living on one part of the planet and humans were living on some other part of the planet. They could have been coexisting. When we say we have movies like Jurassic Park or whatever, like that, by that we get a particular idea of the kind of dinosaurs that were there. And whether dinosaurs were actually ruling the whole planet. We have not combed every corner of the planet and found it permeated with dinosaur species, dinosaur remains. So it's a huge amount of inference. And if we assume still that, say, there was a time when only animals were there, not humans were there, that doesn't mean spirituality was not there. It was just that, because spirituality means the soul. The soul is there even in the animal bodies. So basically the physical body is like a dress for the soul. Say if you go to some country, when it is very warm, and in summer, you try to go and buy some warm clothes at that time, some sweaters and some. None of the shops were stocking it at that time. Now we say, I want warm clothes. And not a single shop has the warm clothes. Now that doesn't mean warm clothes are non-existent. It's just that at that place, in that particular environment, warm clothes are not required, and that's why they're not being supplied over there. So if we consider nature to be like a global cloth manufacturing company, and the human and the various bodies to be like clothes that we manufacture. So it could be that at certain times in the history of the universe, the atmospheric conditions were such that at that particular time, a particular cloth or particular bodily form was not compatible. So it could be possible that certain epochs, that's how we explain some species have become extinct. That means that particular phases in the universe history, that particular clothes are no longer suitable for the atmosphere that is present in the universe at that time. So that could be possible. So that means the soul in the human body is not there. But that doesn't mean spirituality itself is not. It just means that the soul in a human body is not there. Because the same soul, similar souls are there in other bodies. And at an appropriate time, they will get an appropriate body, that means they will evolve further in their spiritual journey. Okay? Stop. So, thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktavrinda ki jai. Gaur Prema.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ji ki
Jai.
So thank you very much to Madhusudan Prabhu ji and Divya Shakti Mata ji.